Hi everyone. Welcome to the Progress Report. This is our Friday accompaniment to our interview series that comes out on Wednesdays. And we are here to give you all the good news that you might have missed during the week. Maybe you read some newsletters or you watch TV or you see the news on social media, but we're willing to make a bet with you that a lot of the stuff that gives you some inspiration, motivation, energy to move forward, to know that there are people out there fighting the good fight to make good things happen in the world is not surfacing at the top of your news intake, wherever that intake may look like. So that's what we're here to help you do. We have a great team here that helps me collect these articles and videos and podcasts from all over the interwebs, all over social media. And today I am flying solo, but Zachary will be back with us next week. So, are we ready for today? What totally depressing topic are we going to convince you that progress is me being made on today? It's going to be child marriage. I know it sounds really like a downer. We had a video go viral this week on Instagram, over 1 million views, that my colleague Molly made about the progress around child marriage in the United States. And a lot of people were surprised to learn, actually, thousands and thousands and thousands on this video were surprised to learn that child marriage is still legal in most of the United States. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Up until around 2016, it was very much so. Literally anyone at literally any age, and I'm talking in broad strokes here, could get married with, in some cases, parental consent. That all started to change around 2016. And yes, that does seem like quite a late year for all of that to start to change, but it is the truth. Several states raised their floor, the minimum age to marriage, to 16 or 17. Some of them are 15, and there are 4 states where still there is no minimum age to get married. And if you would like to know which states those are, I'm happy to tell you, it's California, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Mississippi. No minimum age to get married. You can literally be any age you like. So as you can imagine, that leads to some abusive circumstances. But even in the states where the floor has been raised to, most of them it's 16 or 17, there are a handful where it's 15. That can lead to some abusive circumstances and even just sometimes weird situations because of those laws. So in most of those states, parental consent is required. The issue is some of these, it's mostly teenagers. A lot of people, when they think about child marriage, maybe have an idea of their mind of 11-year-olds being married off to 60-year-olds in religious cults. And that does actually still happen in the United States, although it's rare. But a lot of these individual cases, when we talk about child marriage, are 16 and 17-year-olds who their parents kind of get involved in the legal trafficking of their children. So that means that American girls, it's most often girls, can be married off to men that are seeking legal status, a U.S. visa. They get married to provide that to them, or vice versa. It actually allows for the legal importing of child brides from overseas, from foreign countries. It also means that in some states, let's say this is a Romeo and Juliet type situation, it's 2 16-year-olds or 2 17-year-olds, or even a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old that want to get married, even if you find that to be, okay, well, they're almost of age, they're almost 18, why can't we let them do that? It can create some weird situations in some states where these teenagers are legally allowed to get married, but it's very difficult for them to initiate a divorce because you need to be 18 to be legally involved in the signing and getting out of contracts. So they would have to have an appointed guardian for them to represent their legal interests in order to do that. And it can get quite complicated. So that's kind of like a big background on why it's still an issue in the United States, even if the states have raised their floor to 16 or 17 years old to get married, why advocates are still pushing for all of the states to make the minimum age 18 years old. And there actually has been, and this we're finally getting to the good news, the progress portion of the progress report. There's been a lot of action recently. So big spurt since 2018. In 2018, Delaware was actually the first state to prohibit anyone under the age of 18 to get married. New Jersey was a quick number 2. And since then, 12 other states have joined that list, Maine was actually the latest to do so in May of this year, so this month. And in addition to those states, we also have US Virgin Islands, American Samoa, which I learned was pronounced Samoa recently, in case anyone hears me and thinks, isn't it American Samoa? Apparently it is not. And Puerto Rico have also raised their minimum age to at least 18. And that count is going to rise even further because bills in Oregon and Missouri have been passed in April and May, respectively, by the state legislatures there, again, to ban child marriage, raise the minimum age to 18, and those are just awaiting signatures from their governors. So a lot has been happening even within the last couple of months, definitely within the past decade. I think a lot of people are completely unaware of these changes. And if you look on a map of where child marriage is now banned in the United States, Maine's decision to do it actually has created what they're calling the New England Wall, which is interesting as a term. I feel like it's normally has a negative connotation, but it's positive in this instance, where essentially all the New England states have banned child marriage. So we've got the New England Wall. You can use that term. Tell your friends, tell your family. So yeah, lots of progress on that front. There's also lots of energy around it in a lot of the state legislatures that have not yet successfully passed child marriage, but they're trying to do so. South Carolina has been trying to do this for, I think, since 2020. They've tried to pass a bill at least 3 times. 3 times they have failed, but they're going for number 4 right now. So lots of energy around this. And we included in the progress report last week about the Take It Down Act, which President Trump just signed into federal law, and that makes revenge porn essentially illegal at the federal level. So if someone shares intimate photos or video, puts them up online, number one, that is now criminalized. And number two, as a victim, you would have 48 hours for your request to be responded to by any platform that has put up non-consensual intimate imagery or video. And I wrote an article about this back in September 2024. It's not that long ago. And it was exactly the same as not exactly, but similar to the current situation around child marriage, where you had this hodgepodge of different states passing laws around the issue, but there was no federal coverage. So it was just, there are always going to be loopholes in some states. I had absolutely no idea that the Take It Down Act was going to get passed and signed then. If I did, I would have been hit an even more hopeful note, because the big caveat on that article was the lack of federal coverage. Now we have federal coverage. So that's just to say, with a lot of these issues where it seems like nothing is happening, all of a sudden, a bunch of stuff can happen. And in the case of child marriage, with a lot of states, it already has. Still quite a long ways to go. But the point of bringing up the example of the Take It Down Act is that you never really know what's going to pop up in the future. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the issue, it's a quite common one worldwide as well. I think the recent estimates are about 1 in 5 women in total get married before the age of 18 globally. And I do have one more piece of small progress on that from outside of the United States, and that is from Pakistan. So this week, I believe, oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't this week. It was last week. So also in May. May has been a good month for this issue. Pakistan's capital city, Islamabad, banned child marriage. First of all, it's a capital city, so that's a big deal. It's not the first place in Pakistan to have banned child marriage. Actually, there's one province there that banned child marriage about a decade ago. But advocates, legislatures are hoping that it's going to yield future progress there, because the way that the legislatures are set up there, it required both houses of their legislature to make this change in Islamabad, which means that overall there is energy, there is agreement. Don't want to say 100% agreement, because there's always controversy when laws like this are up to be passed or to not pass. And there was lots of vigorous debate in Pakistan as well. But it was passed. So there's a certain amount of agreement, enough to get bills through. And they're hoping that that's going to create a domino effect in the rest of Pakistan. We shall see. So that's what we have. I know it's a lot of information about child marriage. I just want an issue that I think it calls to mind certain ideas, but maybe people don't have all the information about why letting 16 and 17-year-olds leaves the door open for abuse and other circumstances. So wanted to give people the full rundown on that. But now I will quit talking about child marriage. I will move on to another topic. This is a fun one. The first space agency for the continent has opened up in Africa. So there are some countries in Africa with national space programs, but there is no continental agency as there is, for example, in Europe. It's called the African Space Agency, very aptly named, headquartered in Cairo, Egypt. And its purpose is going to coordinate existing national space programs. Okay, great. We love to see the coordination. But also, it's going to be launching a bunch of satellites and focusing in particular on weather data collection and its dissemination to all of the various countries in Africa. That might not seem that exciting to you, but it is more exciting than it seems. I mean, number one, it's great to have accurate weather forecasts just for, everyday purposes, for farmers, for all kinds of people that rely on weather in their day-to-day lives, but it's also a crucial component of being prepared for extreme weather events. Part of the reason why you see such lower counts of casualties and deaths for extreme weather events in richer countries is because of these forecast systems that we know where extreme events are going to happen. For instance, where hurricanes are going to hit. We're very accurate about that nowadays, and when it's going to happen, how intense it's going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not all of the African countries have access to such accurate data. So having that be disseminated throughout the continent, having a space agency that's responsible for that weather collection and that sharing is, I think, only going to improve the lives of people all over the continent of Africa. So excited to see what happens with the African Space Agency. We'll keep an eye on that for sure. And last but not least, what should we do? What should we do? There's so many. Let's do a couple of LGBTQ wins also abroad. We've done the US, we went to Africa, let's go to Europe now. So, Italy's constitutional court has ruled that two women can register as parents of a child on a birth certificate. Previously, you were only allowed to register as a parent if you were the woman that were the biological mother, if you had carried that child or created that child. You were allowed to be on the birth certificate, but if you were a partner, you had to go through a formal adoption process for you to have legal rights over your own child. But they have ruled that it's unconstitutional to make people go through that process. And now on, the two mothers will be allowed to both put their names on birth certificates. And one quick tour into Poland. So we talked about Poland a lot on this podcast, particularly because they are one of the examples of a country that has gone through a period of democratic decline. They really backslid up until 2024 when they had a party in power called Law and Justice. And they basically took control of the court system there. And they're also a far-right party, so very, very, very anti-gay. One of the things that occurred while they were in power is that they had a bunch of local municipalities, towns, things like that, pass laws that were called LGBT ideology-free zones, the ideology-free zone. These laws were not particularly enforceable, but it did create a climate of gay people feeling very unwelcome in lots of places in Poland. And it's not the case, for instance, in some places, like in Africa, for instance, where homosexuality was literally punishable by imprisonment or even death in a handful of extreme cases. But still, it was just definitely a sign that the country as a whole was moving towards this position of being unwelcome for their gay citizens. And what is the progress here, you ask? The progress is the last remaining LGBT ideology-free zone has been abolished. So after the Law and Justice Party got voted out in 2024, there's been a slow unraveling of these local municipalities that have passed these zones. Again, not enforceable, but a reminder that Poland went through some questionable years in the recent past, and there's been a lot of work being done over there to backtrack from the trajectory that the country was heading in a lot of different ways around the LGBTQ community, around women's rights and abortion, around capture of the court system and democratic backsliding. It's been a whole mess. It's not been a completely straightforward experience trying to reverse all of that. In fact, the current prime minister is running into a lot of roadblocks, and they have an election on June 1st, which may or may not make that road easier for the prime minister to pass some reforms. So we'll probably report on that based on the results in a future progress report. But yes, a couple of wins for the LGBTQ community over there in Europe. So that's what we have for this week. As always, if you have anything that you would love for us to cover, if you would love for us to talk about, if there's anything that you would love for us to talk about less, we are open to any and all kinds of feedback. You can leave a review on any of your podcast platforms that you listen to us on, or you can write us an email at hello@theprogressnetwork.org. That is not going to go into the internet either. I actually do monitor that email, so please feel free to write in. I love hearing from listeners, and so does Zachary. So thank you once again for spending your time with us. I hope that it, at the very least, was a bright spot in your week, and hopefully ending your week on a slightly more sunny note. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we hope to see you next Wednesday for our next interview and next Friday for our next progress report. And thanks as ever to the Podglomerate for producing our podcast.